Hi there and welcome. I'm Susan Spears, your host of the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm excited to introduce our guest today. We have with us Ryan DeWeese. He is the CEO of the Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region, actually located, as stated, in Spotsylvania, which is part of our region. And they are an HCA hospital, which of course is a large hospital system throughout, I think, most of the United States, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, very, very large system. And Ryan has a long history. He's a young man, but has a long history, 11 and a half years already, in working with HCA Healthcare. He received his master's in health administration from VCU, which we were just chatting about because I went to VCU, but mine's a music degree, and also got his bachelor's at Penn State. Now, Ryan, we could go into this whole long list of the different roles you've had, but I'm sure you're going to talk about some of that as we dive into your leadership journey. Are you excited to be here today?
I am thrilled to be here.
Great. Well, I'm delighted to have you
Thank
here,
you.
and look forward to having our conversation. So let's jump right in.
Sure.
Tell me about what leads you to being here today, your leadership journey, if you will.
So I would say my leadership journey started a long time ago when I was a child. So I know you said, don't focus on the now, focus on where it started.
Yeah.
And ever since I was a child, I always kind of enjoyed being out front, and I always enjoyed leading, whether it be on swim teams. I was a swimmer for a very long time, or just anything in the classroom, leading teams and that. And I never really had to be asked to do it. I just kind of gravitated towards that role. And, you know, leadership, as we all know, is not necessarily the popularity contest. And if leadership was easy, everyone would want to do it. And that's just not the case. So I don't know if I really, it was kind of an unconscious draw for me to want to lead teams, want to lead people, want to lead friends, to hopefully doing the right thing most of the time. I was not necessarily I was not a child that gravitated towards the bad things. So hopefully I led my friends in the right way. But really it started off early, and it was an unconscious draw. I just always wanted to be out front, always wanted to be leading, and being seen as a leader. And there's a lot of pressure to that at times. But I never really drew away from the pressure. I always kind of embraced it. And there's a quote. I'm a quote guy. I told you before we got started. Pressure makes diamonds. So that's one thing that I always keep in the forefront of my mind is the greater the pressure, the greater the result, and the greater the reward at the end of at whatever journey you're on.
Wow, yeah, because you have to have, my dad, it's not as nicely stated, but Daddy would say, you have to have the intestinal fortitude. That's my
I've heard
dad.
That too.
My dad voice too, by the way.
Yep.
But I was always really amazed by him, watching him as a leader in our community growing up, because a lot of times he had arrows slung at him, and he just had the courage of his convictions, doing the right thing, right, and just kept moving forward. Now, so you talked about leading teams early on, but tell me about that progression, like kind of through college and all that, and how you landed even further into where you are now.
Yeah, so going through college, I can't really describe it. Growing up as a child, I wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to be an attorney. I don't really know why. It was just something I always wanted to do. And so I went to Penn State. It took 6 years of Latin, started that journey in middle school, actually, because I was told a lot of the legal terminology, it's got a Latin root. And so I decided to go that route, and went to Penn State undergrad, full intention of being an attorney. So I have a psychology degree, actually, with a minor in business. But I got to about my junior year in college, and I just had a change of heart. And I realized that law was not the route I needed to be on. And I'll never forget that day, because I kind of stopped me in my tracks to say, most of my childhood and into my adolescence, and now evolving into my adulthood, has been around becoming an attorney. And when something like that happens, it's kind of scary. So on the one hand, you keep going down the road and hope for the best, or you have the courage to take a step in a different direction. And so I kind of abandoned ship. I mean, I had even gotten so far as to prep for my LSATs. I'd toured a law school. I was all in, and then it just stopped. And I remember sitting there talking with a couple of my mentors to say, hey, what do I do here? And I'm very fortunate. One of my mentors is actually my father-in-law.
Yeah.
He is a hospital CEO, a 35-year hospital administration veteran. And he pulled me aside one day and said, hey, I think you should look at healthcare administration. I think with your leadership capabilities and your style, I think that you would be a great fit. And my response to that, I'll never forget it. I said, sounds great. What is it? To me, hospitals were doctors and nurses. I had no appreciation for everything else that went into it.
Right.
So he pointed me in this direction, and that's when I applied to VCU, put all my eggs in one basket. Probably could have done that a little bit differently with the benefit of hindsight, but it worked out. The best decision I've ever made, and the rest is history. So it's been my career. It's been more than a career. It's been my calling in my life for the past nearly 12 years now.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. That's really a pivotal moment, like that conversation.
Yep.
You know, people don't always realize the impact of their words and encouraging others, you know, in that direction. Do you think you would have ever landed in this field if you hadn't had that conversation?
I doubt it. I honestly, because truly, when I say I didn't have any appreciation for hospitals, I really didn't. To me, it was all doctors, it was all nurses, and that's what a hospital was. I do feel like I would have landed somewhere in leadership, but I can't promise you that it would have been in healthcare.
Amazing, amazing. Well, now you've gone through the ranks, really, up and down. A lot of the East Coast.
Several states.
You know, with HCA to where you are now, actually a CEO, and I know that you're under 40.
Correct.
It's up to you if you'd like to share your age.
I'm 36.
Okay, at this moment in time, he is 36, folks, which is awesome. I might be I'm 20 years older than you. I don't know how that happens, though, by the way. You're going to blink and you'll be here.
I'm experiencing that with my children.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
I can appreciate that.
But wow, a lot on your shoulders at this moment in time. You know, I look at folks that are in healthcare administration prior to our recent, pandemic situation since 2020. I already was blown away by anyone in healthcare administration. Working at Chambers, we get connected to, obviously, you know this, to you guys and what you do. And the problems have become so complex.
Correct.
Prior to that. And so it has to be a special kind of leader to want to raise their hand and say yes and go after it. What is it about it that is your passion and makes you know you're doing the right thing?
So I think for me, anyone who gets into healthcare, anyone, let's think back 3-4 years ago, anyone that has gotten into healthcare at that time, it has to be a calling.
Yes.
It has to be on your life. You have to be that individual who wants to better the human condition. That's why you're there. You're there to help people at their absolute worst. I tell people all the time, even my own family, it's really weird to work in a place that no one wants to be. And if you think about it, people don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to go check out the hospital today. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. So you have to understand that you're getting patients, you're getting people at their absolute worst. So you have to know that getting into it, and you have to be called to do this type of work. Now, in terms of the growth in my career journey, and you and I talked a little bit before we got on this podcast, I don't see it that way. I think it's a result of a lot of great people that have opened up a lot of doors for me, but also the willingness to dive in head first and be the one to raise your hand when no one else will.
Right.
Because that's when you get the opportunities that no one else will. And when you take the opportunities that no one else wants, you never know what's going to be on the other side.
Yeah, that's really well said. Taking that, just like that sliver of opportunity, saying yes and seeing where it leads you.
It's not always been glamorous, and it's not glamorous every day for me. But you have to. You can never get away from why you got into this. So I referenced 4 years ago before COVID. Now, if you're getting into healthcare now, I would say that calling has to be even stronger.
Right.
Because you know what you're getting yourself into now. So it has to be that calling on your life. And if it's not, that's okay. It's okay. And there have been a lot of folks that have left the profession altogether, and for one reason or another, and that has to be your own personal choice. But it's okay. But I would just say find something that resonates with you. Find an organization, find an industry that you're truly committed to, because no one wants you to be unhappy. And that's what I tell our team all the time. We don't want you to be unhappy. I want you to be fulfilled. I want you to be fulfilled as an employee and as a colleague, but I really want you to be fulfilled as a human being, because that's where you derive your energy from. And we talk a lot about burnout. And my definition of burnout is when you work really hard and you don't feel like you're making a difference.
Oh, yeah.
So we talk about a lot of that in today's world. We don't want people to be burned out. I want you to be fulfilled in whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like at that moment when you had put all of that time and energy and dreams and desire into being an attorney, it's almost like you had this snapshot into the future of what that could look like something within you knew. And it could not have been an easy decision to go, oh my gosh, I've got to step away from this. I bet you there were real naysayers around you. And
Absolutely.
Yet you persevered and listened to those mentors. And so you did mention some mentors. I want to bring that up now and say, how are they also part of your life today? And are there any that have transferred over? And
mentioned my father-in-law. He just took on a new assignment in Kansas, actually. So he's, I think, 65, 66 years old, and he just took on another CEO job. So he's still running full steam. So I'm grateful to have him as a mentor, because not only does he care about me professionally, I'm his son-in-law.
Right.
And so that is a very different flavor that I don't think many people will have. You always have that familial relationship, but to have someone that you can look up to who's lived it for the past 35 years, I mean, he and I talk about a lot. Not anything that we shouldn't, because he works for a different organization.
Sure.
But we talk about a lot about the challenges and how we're facing them. And it's been really unique to have that relationship evolve too, from just being a father-in-law and son-in-law dynamic to now being in the same field and being in the same role. And so our conversations, we're both car guys. We both love cars. So a lot of our conversations were around sports and cars. Now it's evolved to, hey, how are you guys dealing with this? What are you thinking about that's innovative? And so the maturity of our conversation has definitely improved. But then also, I've had a lot of mentors that still are within HCA. Almost every CEO I've ever had, I've been very blessed to have had great CEOs at every step along the way. And the gentleman who actually hired me in to the company, my very first CEO, he's actually my boss now as our division president, Tim McManus. And he's still, I talk to him multiple times a week. So to have him as not only a boss, but also a mentor and the individual who has really helped me along the way seek out the right opportunities, and not only about opportunities, but give guidance on a situation that I'm in. So to have that still, I guess I'm fortunate to have people that are still around me that are still actively engaged in the field.
Well, you'll continue to tell your father-in-law. I said, and he already knows this, 65 is the new.
It's the new 35.
Yeah. I already revealed my age, and my dad is 83, and still, went to dinner with him last night. Still, that person, right? And another. We're so fortunate. Another community leader here in Fredericksburg, Marguerite Young, has had such an influence on my life, and she's 94.
Wow.
So I think obviously we know, thanks to that field you're in, medicine, people are living longer.
Bingo.
And so you're going to have those mentors for a long time. And the other thing is, at some point, you may have already figured it out that you're mentoring others yourself. And
I want to be, because I think a lot of mentoring, number one, it's about caring. You got to care for the other person. You have to have a vested interest in that individual. But then you have to want to be helpful. How can we help the next generation of leaders? Number one, how can I help you want to be part of this? because I think that's more challenging now in healthcare than ever before, is getting people interested and getting people to want to be part of this. But then also, how can I help you avoid the same mistakes I've made?
Right.
Perfect is the enemy of great. We're not perfect. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes. I've probably made 8 mistakes this morning thus far, and we're only 5-6 hours into them. So we make mistakes all day long, but it's about how can we help that next generation avoid some of the same mistakes or avoid some of the same challenges that we've had. And if there's a way that I can make your life easier, I'm going to do everything in my power to do that.
Yeah. So I know this is an uncomfortable question, but as you describe all that, maybe not too uncomfortable, but how would you describe your leadership style?
So I think my leadership style, it's kind of a so many different styles, depending on the day, honestly, depending on the situation.
Okay.
But I think when it boil it down, and this was something that the VCU program, the MHA program, took a great interest in, is how do you, whatever your style is, when you're going into healthcare, how do you become a servant leader? I think you have to be a servant leader, because ultimately, you're the one that's you're the one that's at the front of the line, and your folks are going to follow you. I want my folks to follow me, and I want to lead by example for serving them, serving the patients, serving the community, serving the region. And that's one thing. Every 2 weeks, I talk to my orientees. Every new individual that comes in our organization, I have a chance to interact with them for about an hour on their orientation day. And whether they knew it or not, hospitals are the cornerstone of any community you go to. There are a handful of things that people want to know when they move into a community. They want to know about, if you've got kids, they want to know about the schools. They want to know about the caliber of the schools. But they also want to know about the doctors and the hospitals. Where are they? How good are they? What are they known for? And so I don't consider that to be a burden. I consider that to be a blessing. We are a cornerstone of this community, and we need to act as such. So does that kind of answer that question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. I see you as it sounds like you're very adaptive. Like you take your style and meet people where they are, right? And some days it's probably a lot easier than others, some moments, but yet that's inherently who you are.
And I think also what you have to do is, so I draw a lot of leadership style and a lot of leadership abilities from coaching. So being in athletics my whole life, I've had a lot of different coaches, and the one thing that I know, because I consider myself to be a coach, and you cannot coach everybody the same way.
Right.
So you have to adapt your style to what that person needs and what motivates that person. I know the motivation for my team is very different across the board. So I know whatever we do and say with this person is not going to work for the next person. So I think you have to be adaptable, but you have to have a style. And I would say that my style is absolutely serving. That's what gets me motivated. That's what gets me up out of bed every morning. I am excited to come into work every morning, regardless of the challenges that we may be facing as a healthcare industry. So be it. That challenges are always going to be there. It's just a matter of what are they. So, but you have to be bought in, and I am excited to wake up every morning to come to work. And I know that's kind of most people are like, you got to be kidding me, but truly, I consider it an honor to be part of this community, but then also part of the hospital and part of the system too, because you mentioned HCA, and we've got a wonderful parent organization that supports us through resources, through investment, so that we can continue to advance not only the facilities that we have, but also the services that we offer. That was a lot.
No, I'm just taking it all in, and I'm picturing you as you start each day excited and ready to go. Like when you first get in, and I know every day's different, but what's the one consistent thread that you think is like an important thing that you need to do for your success every day?
Every day, I round every single morning. The first thing I do, there are very specific areas of the hospital that I am in every single day, because I know that those specific areas that I don't want to share all my secrets, but it's my belief that these 3 or 4 areas, if those areas are messed up, then the flow of the day will probably not go as we anticipate. So leadership is not about reading a spreadsheet. Leadership is not about sitting behind a desk. That's actually my least favorite thing to do, is sit behind my desk. You have to round. You have to be out on the floors. You have to be engaging. And, some days it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Some days there are challenges.
Oh, of course.
But how are you going to deal with those? And are you going to stay in the fire, or are you going to run away? And I've seen in my experience that the ones that run away, traditionally either they don't last that long, or the success of the organization suffers because they're not willing to be in the fire and be in those uncomfortable situations. Because that's once again, going back to a quote, I was told very early on, leadership, if you really want leadership, you have to get very comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's just what it is.
Yep.
So, and that's something that I kind of took to heart 12 years ago. And I'm not saying every day is full of uncomfortable situations, but there are situations that will be very uncomfortable. And how are you going to respond to them will ultimately determine your success and the success of the organization you're in.
Okay, well, let's flip it for a moment and let's shift to when you actually are off work. Maybe let's go all
That's
the
rare,
way.
but
Let's go all the way to a vacation, and say, what's your favorite thing there, and how do you turn all of this off so you can actually, hopefully be present with yourself and your family.
Yeah, so a little bit about my family. I've got my wife Kara. She and I we actually met in high school. So we did not date in high school, but
met.
Yes, we met in high school. This December will be 12 years that we've been married. We've got two little girls. Chloe, who's 8, who started 3rd grade this morning at Brock Road.
Oh, wow.
And Kenzie, who's 5. And then my only other male comrade in the house is my 15-pound Shih Tzu, Mickey, named after Mickey Mouse. But I do think it's important to disconnect. You have to recharge. I'll be the first to admit I'm not the best example of that. My digital appendage goes off all day, every day, even when you're off. And I think that's another thing about healthcare in hospitals. It's a 24/7, 365 operation. That this is not 9 to 5. And if that's what you're looking for, healthcare probably isn't the right avenue for you. But when I'm not at work, I try to invest all of my time into my family because I know that I don't get to see them that frequently during the week. So on the weekends, we'll cheerleading competition. So we've worked our way through gymnastics. I used to do that with my daughters. Now we're doing cheerleading. Yet another sport that I don't understand, but I just try to be present with them. But no, at one point it was all Disney World all the time. That was our normal vacation spot. But we did a little bit something different this year. Went to an island off of Florida.
Oh, interesting.
With some friends down there, which was great. But I think you do have to disconnect. But what I will say, though, that makes it easy here is I have a very competent team who's around me. And, when one of us is off, we make every effort to make sure that person is not plugged in. And if you are plugged in, then you're getting harassed of why you plugged in. You need to disconnect, go be with your family.
I think that's good. The 24-hour phone, not your industry. I get it, but it's really done a lot to make us feel less human in some ways, because what you described is the organization, but not you as a human being. A human being is not 24 hours a day, tied to that, no matter how much you love it. You have to have that separation from time to time, I believe, to really recharge those batteries and go back to what you love.
Bingo.
So being able to do that in a world of
you're always accessible, and that's the hard part, and that's what going back to my father-in-law, he said, the leadership challenges for you at this stage in your career, in your life, were very different than me. Yes. At the exact same age, exact same stage. He said, you couldn't find me. I mean, I of course I had a house phone, but there wasn't email, there wasn't text messaging, there wasn't all of the other stuff, the avenues by which people could get you. He said that didn't mean I was any less involved, but it was easier to disconnect because there was only one thing to disconnect from, as opposed to 7 or 8 things to disconnect from now. Yeah.
It has to be a real conscious decision.
Bingo. And it's hard. It's really hard because, my style, I want to feel like I'm always engaged and involved. And but one thing he shared with me that was very humbling, he said, you have to get to the point where you disconnect. He said, because in all honesty, sometimes things run better when you're not there. Because when you get involved, you probably mess things up. You don't let I'm just being candid.
I really like this guy.
Yeah, he said, I hate to be the guy to tell you this, but when you disconnect, your team probably operates better because you're not there messing it up.
Yeah, they're thinking for themselves.
They know what to do.
Yes, they do.
You just have to give them the tools and the resources and the time to be successful, and then get out of the way. That's why they're there. So
love it. Well, I told you this would happen. We're already at the point of winding down, and we've just begun our conversation, right? So I want to have you come back.
Happy to.
Yeah. But for today, I'm going to go back to the question about a quote or a motto, even though you've mentioned a few, just to see if there's one or two final quotes or mottos that are especially meaningful to you that you'd like to share with our audience.
Sure. So I guess I'll wrap up. You probably have gathered I'm a bit of a sports buff.
Yes.
But I think when it comes to leadership, you have to be bold, you have to be courageous, you have to be willing to do things that other people may not be willing to do. But going back to being the courageous part, one of my favorite quotes, and I believe, I'll probably get fact checked here, but I believe it's from Michael Jordan, is you miss 100% of the shots that you never take.
Yeah.
And so going back to my law school example, if I hadn't have gone down this road, who knows what my life would have been. That was a really humbling moment for me to have to completely redirect in a different direction, but I took the shot. And I'm glad that I did, because I cannot imagine myself doing anything differently. But that's one of my favorite quotes of all time is, you will miss 100% of the shots that you never take. And so I don't want anyone to, I get it, it can be scary, but be courageous and take the shot. Because if you never take the shot, I can promise you'll miss.
Yeah. Good one. Anything else you would like to share?
I just appreciate being here, and this is my first time.
Yeah.
But no, this is really great. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for asking me to participate. And I'm happy to come back as much as you. This is about as this is about as easy as it comes. So this was the best part of my day. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, I thank you so much. To our listeners, this was Ryan DeWeese. He's the CEO of Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center, HCA Hospital here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. And he's 36. I'm just going to say it again, but he's an awesome leader. And I'm really enjoying getting to know you even better as you've been here in our community. I'm Susan Spears, President and CEO of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce, and you've been listening to our Leader to Leader podcast. If you'd like, you could go ahead and give us a follow so you don't miss any future episodes. That would really make our day. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.